And so I'm going to take the first couple points, and then I know Ryan's going to join me on the second half. But when we're thinking about searching for work, there's the obvious in terms of, setting up your job search, setting up job alerts, etc. But I do want to talk about some different strategies that you can employ in addition to that. So the first one I want to talk about is raising the awareness of yourself and of yourself as a brand and activating your social capital. And so, what I mean by that is boosting your profile, so to speak, in terms of letting people know that you're out there as a professional, talking about projects that you have worked on, activating that social capital in terms of who do you have connections with. And it's not just about the networking, which I know we have all heard as a strategy for trying to find work, but really thinking about where your relationships are, where those people are in terms of organization in the field, where they are in their career, and really being thoughtful in terms of who is a part of your network and what parts of that network does it make sense to reinvest your time and energy to maintain relationships and perhaps to start or renew relationships and increase your social capital. And I do want to note here that this is not just about you and what you can get from those people by activating your social capital. I would, in fact, encourage you to do the reverse, especially if you're looking for a job. What is it that you can offer them? How can you support or boost those people? How can you give them some of your social capital so that it can then be reciprocated? So don't go in for it asking, go into it supplying, and then perhaps there can be some mutual benefit. The other thing I want to talk about is increasing your sphere of influence. So we talked about raising the awareness of yourself as a professional, getting, activating your relationships. And I want you to think about taking that one step further and growing your sphere of influence by participating on panels, getting your name out there with articles or blog posts, contributing to community forums, whether that is in an official capacity or a Facebook group. For example, the Archivist Think Tank Facebook group is fairly active. And while I am not as active or periodically active, I do see people's names come up frequently, and I do notice who is contributing to the discussion. How are they contributing? Are they sharing knowledges and resources? What is it that those people are doing, and how that is impacting how they are perceived and what influence they have? So that's another thing I want you to think about. Even if you're new to the field, you do have your own thoughts and perceptions, observations, etc. Like bring that to the conversation and start growing your own sphere of influence, because I guarantee you I am not the only person paying attention to who's showing up where. So definitely play around with that, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised of the connections that you develop and of the opportunities that may come up from that.
Those are a series of excellent points, Rachel. As we look at the next point here, really what it boils down to is you'll never quite know where and how far the sphere of influence draws out towards.
Mm.
And as a result of that, everything from the job application and hiring process to being able to contribute your own content and being able to participate in these forums, all of that, that's a constellation of factors where you'll never quite know who may see that or may see you appearing again, contributing to a conversation, and then thinking, that's the best person for this job. And both Rachel and I have discussed this before, that we have had consulting opportunities that have arisen from situations we never would have ever anticipated. And the idea that we are in this blended environment where work and social spheres have really come together. And it's something to acknowledge, and it's something to understand where your level of comfort is in this. But as you look for work, to consider how those could come together in ways that, again, that you feel is your authentic self, but also promotes your brand and being able to get your name further out there. So I really think about it as kind of planting seeds everywhere. Anecdotally, it was interesting. I was sitting outside the other day, and next to me, unbeknownst to me, was a group interview for a clothing store. And it was a group interview. It was the first interview with three individuals, and the hiring manager was there. The second question was, how do you live the brand? And what they meant by that was essentially, what do you do outside of work? And how does that reflect this lifestyle brand, that we have? And I found it interesting how that kind of climbed near the top, and just to kind of hear the different answers and responses. And as you have a passion, because it's a passion that brought me into the field, and I would say the same is true for you, Rachel, sharing those experiences, sharing exhibitions that are meaningful to you, being able to talk about, and this comes across with the Facebook group that Rachel was mentioning, being able to share, because there was one I believe recently about hanging racks and displays. What was some of the best examples that you've seen? Sharing those things can really resonate with others, and then be able to have you be more front of mind when some of these opportunities occur. And also, as a parting thought on this, the idea that not all jobs are posted. So you may find yourself in a positive scenario where an opportunity comes to you from the energy that you've put out into the world and the content that you've created. So really, to that last point, that's something aligned with this, which is there are a lot of different avenues to be able to land that job, whether it's a dream job or a daydream job, or something in the middle, and that it can be a path that almost can defy logic for how you're able to do that. But the consistency of showing your interest, the consistency of showing up at events, whether virtual, or as we are allowed in person, all can kind of contribute to the job seeking.
Hmm. Yes, and I think the only thing that I would add to that is there's the traditional, what I would term bad advice in terms of like, oh, to volunteer for free and then a job might come up kind of advice, which is not realistic for many cases. So we're not saying like be creative and volunteer for free. Like I don't think that's either of our recommendations. But one of, I think, my more approved strategies, or something that I think is at least more healthy for everybody involved, is if you are a person who needs to make a certain amount of money in order to live and support yourself and or your family, it is okay if you have a degree that you are not using because you need to have a job that pays you what you need for the moment. I've seen some post and some angst about people who feel bad or feel shame around getting the degree but then not getting like a job in the field per se. And I would actually reframe that as, you're getting a job for now to survive and make it through this period while you apply and work towards getting that job in the field. So instead of volunteering for free or feeling bad that you're not in the field, like I think that is a totally appropriate strategy and realistic strategy to have. So that's one of, I think, the things we mean in terms of being creative, is creative in how you're framing it as well. Get that for now job as you work towards the dream job kind of thing. Another thing that I would recommend is, especially if you can't afford to take a job in the field right now, having a job that has translatable skills, as Ryan and I talked about, in terms of like job adjacency, so that you're still working on those skills and keeping them fresh. And then you're also gaining other very beneficial skills you could bring with you into the field. So I think that is part of what we mean by thinking about it creatively and finding strategies that work for you, instead of just the very glib like volunteer or be an unpaid intern, because that's never good advice.